Hello and welcome back to another video. Before I pack the McMichael 382 away, and thank you for the lovely comments on my last video about Longwave is still with us and it's still belting it out there, although I understand it is on a lower power. But before I find a home for this again safely and I wrap it all up and it goes back into sort of semi-storage to keep the woodworm out of it, and I was having a bit of a clear out in my little cramped workshop here, and I came across something else that I restored in the 1990s, and I thought it'd be interesting to combine the two together, and see if it still worked, and give a bit of a demo. And it was quite popular. We think of as sort of standalone hi-fi units like turntables, amps and that kind of thing. Came in the late 50s, 60s. It was popular to build your own in those years, wasn't it? But this is certainly not hi-fi because this is glorious mono played with a steel needle. But in the 30s, it became quite popular that if you didn't have a radiogram, which was a combined radio record player, obviously, if you didn't have one of those, you'd spent your whole 18 guineas buying on such a set as this cost, which was a lot of money then, by gum it was. For another £2, say, or was that 40 shillings or something like that, you could buy, this is a HMV version, I think it's at the 2041 model, not 100% sure about that, but you could buy a standalone record player, obviously, which just played, because there was only 78s in those days and took steel radiogram needles. You could buy a standalone record player and plug in to the gram sockets. A lot of radios had a gram socket that you could plug such a record deck into and turn your radio, use the amp and turn it into basically a side-by-side radiogram unit. And I just thought it'd be fun to show this and give a demo of this working, and so we'll give it a whirl. And these are quite problematic, or you have to, I remember in the 1990s I had a ever so job. The rubbers in these units tend to perish, that they got, it's electromagnetic, and the rubbers perish, and there's two little coils in there, and you finding some rubbers that matched was a devil of a job. So I don't know how well I've not tried this. This is the first try, so you're seeing it as it happens. And we're going to play, I have to put my glasses on this, we're going to play, in my view, who was one of the best, or if not the best, theatre organist that the UK has ever produced, and that is the legend himself, Reginald Dixon. This is a 1930 Rex 78 record that he recorded at the Blackpool Tower Ballroom. And it starts off with, it's a typical Dixon, it's called Dixon Hits, and I think it's number 9, and it's 3 melodies you get. It's Serenade in the Night, Shoe Shine Boy, and I just love the third one, Peter's Pop Keeps a Lollipop Shop. Now how about that? The likes of Queen or ABBA or I've never covered that 1930s classic of Peter's Pop Keeps a Lollipop Shop. I think it was a 1938 song, sorry, 1936 song, I stand corrected, and it was Ambrose, the band leader, that made it a bit of a thing of it. So this is Reg Dixon's, that's right at the end, that's the third. So we'll see how we get on. We'll fire it all up and see what happens, as they say. Well, the turntable's come on, which is a good sign, isn't it? This has got a little volume control as well, which I don't know how much we'll need that up. I don't think I've ever used, I don't think I've even ever tried the gram socket. I usually use it with one of my bigger Echoes. I used to work in a primary school, and they used to do a lot of war in the curriculum back in the days, and I'm going back many, many years. They used to do the Second World War and they used to have a VE party. So I used to take a lot of 78s of that era and a big radio and this, and do a kind of 1940s disco while they had their VE party, which they absolutely loved because they were fascinated. They'd never seen a 78 record in their life, obviously, or something that played it, or that you could play a record with a steel needle. So we'll switch that to gram, which we need, and then shall we try it? Shall we see what happens? I'll take the mic off, so I might go a bit faint, and I'll put it up there. So there we go. That was Reginald Dixon at 78 RPM. I don't think it was, it might have been a tad slow. My apologies. I think you can get an app on your phone and check turntables, but shall we, whilst we're here, shall we just hear, the other side is A Star Fell Out of Heaven, Did I Remember, and The Fleet's in port again. I'm sure it is. So there we go, just a bit of fun there. That was Reginald Dixon from the 1930s on a 1930s HMV. I'm sure it's a 2140 record player that you could attach to the gram sockets of your wireless and have a have your own little radiogram. If you lived in a small house or lived in a flat, it was an ideal way. This lid folds down and you can move this anywhere and just bring it out when you want it. What a great idea that was. I'm sure there was hundreds if not thousands of these made, and obviously the first thing that would be thrown out when, particularly after the war, soon in the 50s, we had 45s and then 33 LPs come out. You couldn't play those with a steel needle. You had to have a ceramic cartridge and a stylus. So obviously, the idea was kept going for many years, right on into the 40s. I think Plusagram made a similar situation that you could plug into the gram sockets of a wireless, but very clever. And I just thought that's, if you've got an old wireless and you can find one of these, it's another use for it. Thank you. It's been fun looking at these old radios and me digging them out, and I might do likewise, in some future videos. So thanks for your wonderful comments. It's been wonderful to hear from you all. My apologies. In my position as a carer, it leaves me very little time to do a lot else, and I'm sadly, I probably in time, it takes me a while, but I will answer some of your super comments. So thank you, and my best wishes until the next video. Until then, bye for now.